Alright, for this demo, we are going to draft the school size 8 bodice sloper. You will need a long straight edge like a yardstick, your clear plastic ruler, your hip curve or curved ruler, and an L square. You will also need a 5H pencil or a mechanical pencil. To start this, we are going to create a line at the bottom of our paper, and this line will be about 1.5 to 2 inches from the cut edge of that paper. This is the line that your whole garment or bodice sloper will be based off of. Alright, this line needs to be a total, or we need to mark out on this line a space, a total of 19.25 inches. So I'm going to start where my measurement will start for 19.25 inches. I want to be aware of any holes or any of the edges of my paper. Okay, so I don't want to get caught up in that hole. So I'll make sure I mark away from it some ways. Right here seems good. That's where I'll start. I'm going to measure 19.25 from there. I always like to put one right on where my mark is, because this edge of my ruler has been knocked and marked and hit a lot, so it's not exactly accurate anymore. So if I put one there and I need 19.25 inches, then I have to go to 20.25, which is right here. Now I always double check that, so I'll move this up and this will give me an idea if I was right. And yes, we're at 19.25. Again, double check. So right there is my mark. Side. So this is now 19.25 inches. I'm now going to square both those lines up. Use the short edge of your L square, put it against that baseline you started with, and put the outside of the longer edge of your square ruler against those markings. And line up this inside part of the short end of your L square right with that baseline. Make sure it's perfectly on there. That looks good. And just square a line all the way up. Remember to always intersect those lines. Draw them longer than you need them. And do the same thing on this side. All right. This line will eventually become our waist, this our center front, and this our center back. All right, so what we want to do here is these two sides of our box are going to measure a total of 16.5 inches. So I'm going to measure up 16.5 inches from my baseline. So if I start with one here, so it's totally accurate, 16.5 and goes to 17.5, mark it, and we'll double check it. Correct. And same thing here. One, 16.5. Check this. All right, now connect those two markings. That is a little off. Let's try that again. It's important that this box is perfectly accurate, or the patterns that we're creating inside will be off and they will not work. There we go. Now we can check this and make sure. To do that, I like to just put my ruler in the middle, make sure this box is perfectly square. I'll square off of this line. I should end up with 19 1/4. I do. And then here. Should end up with 16 1/2, and I do. Okay? If you want, you can check the edges too and make sure everything is perfect. 16 1/2 there. There. And 19. Perfect. All right. Now we can actually start drafting what's going to be inside of our box. So let's label a few things here, okay? Let's label this bottom edge our waistline. Okay, we're going to label the top of waist. This part on the right side is going to be our center front. And then the back will be center back. All right. Now we're going to find our center line or side seam. So from center front, we're going to measure in 9 7/8 on our waistline. So let's do that. Measure in 9 7/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 7/8. And do the same thing at our top of waist, 9 7/8. Okay, again, I always like to check. Measure twice. I've made many mistakes by only measuring once and then not having the correct measurement in the end. I've inched it a lot of times. All right, so that works out perfect. Now let's connect those 2 points. Again, intersect. There we go. Now this is our center line or inside seam. Now we're going to create our bust line. So from our waist, we're going to measure up our center front, 7 1/4 inches. 7.25. And its center back from waist will also measure up 7.25 inches. Double check that measurement. Good. Good. Now connect those two markings. Intersect those lines. All right. Now we're going to find what is called our apex. Okay? And this is labeled, we can label this now bust line. All right? So we're going to measure in from our center front. So this is our bust line. We're going to measure in on our bust line from center front 3.5 inches. One, two, 3.5. And we'll do the same thing at the waistline. Measure in from center front 3.5 inches. 1, 2, 3.5. Connect those 2 points and intersect the lines that they're crossing through. Okay. Now we'll establish our waist dart here. What we'll first do is measure down 1/2 inch from our bust point along that center line of what will become our dart and mark it. We don't want our dart to go all the way to bust because we'll end up with a point right at apex, which we don't want. And many people say 1/2 inch is not enough. So later, when you're working on this on your own, you could measure even further away at another point in time. Okay. Now we need to find our dart opening. The dart intake is split up into 3/4 on each side of the center fold line. So I'll measure out 3/4 this way and measure out 3/4 this way. So 3/4, 3/4. There we are. Now connect these two. These will become the dart legs or the stitching lines of the dart. Connect those to the tip of the dart. There we are. Okay. So now let's find where our neckline starts. To do that, we'll measure out or down from the top of waist 2.5 inches. So I'm measuring down from top of waist, down my center front, 2.5 inches. And mark it. Square out that line for 1/2 inch. And mark. Now, along our top of waist from center front, we're going to measure out 2 5/8 inches. 1, 2, and 5/8. Mark it. And just give yourself a good clip. That will be the beginnings of our dart, of our neck opening. So what we'll do now is square down from each of these points. You can draw a light line. This will become a guide, which we'll later make into the neckline. Intersect those 2 points. like so. Okay. We'll measure out from our side seam towards center front 1 inch and 9/16. So here's 1 inch and 9/16, and do that in both directions. Another inch and 9/16. Okay. Now connect these points right to the intersection where side seam and bust line intersect. Now we'll start to establish our armhole on our front bodice. Okay, so measure out from side seam. Here's our side seam. Measure out on the bust line towards center front from side seam 2 1/8 of an inch. So 2 inches and 1/8 right there. Mark that. Okay. This will label E. Up, we're going to square up from this now 2 5/8 of an inch. So I'm squaring up from point E off of my bust line 2 5/8 of an inch. So 1, 2, and 5/8. I'm just giving myself a small guide. Again, 1, 2, and 5/8. Right there. And that is point F. Okay. Now here, where our side seam and bust line intersect, let's label that D. From D point, we're going to measure up 6 1/2 inches. And this is point G. Square out from point G 1/2 of an inch. And mark. That is point H. Now what we're going to connect is our point H to the intersection here where what will become our shoulder and neckline. So point H right there to shoulder and neckline. And we've now established our shoulder. Okay. Now we want to find the midpoint of our shoulder. So we'll measure from point H to the neckline point. We'll label this point B. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/4. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 1/4. So I have 7 1/4 inches. So whatever you measure here from H to B, so I end up with 7 1/4. Half of 7 is 3 1/2. Half of a quarter is 1/8. So 3 5/8 is what I'm ending up with for my midpoint. So I'm going to mark that on here, measure out 3 5/8, 1, 2, 3, and 5/8. Does that work over here? 1, 2, 3, and 5/8. Let's see, that works there. And that works there as well. Okay? So that is my midpoint. I'm going to connect that right to where my apex is. Again, remember apex is where bust line and then the center of this dart connected. So I connect that right to my apex. Shoulder point. I've now created the center line of the dart coming from my shoulder. I will measure up a 1/2 inch from apex on that new center line. Mark it. Now let's find our dart opening here. So what we'll do here is measure 1 inch and 3/16 from either side. Inch and 3/16. And then again 1 inch, 3/16. There's my dart opening, or the intake of the dart. Connect those to that mark that is a 1/2 inch above apex. We now establish our shoulder dart. Okay, let's finish creating our armhole. What we'll do now is take our curved ruler and we want to try to connect D and F. If I put 0, I like to mark a 1/2 inch in from D. Put 0 at that mark. Bring my ruler in until I hit point F. Okay, now I can start drawing. Once I get to point F, I'll stop, hold my pencil there, pivot my ruler down until I see point H. There's point H. Continue and out of my front armhole. Okay, so let's start drafting our back. What we'll do here is measure in from our center back along our bust line 3 5/8. One, 2, 3, and 5/8. And do the same thing here. Center back measuring along waistline, 3 5/8. Always double check. Perfect. Connect those 2 points. Like so. We'll measure out from the center line of our dart 9 9/16, or 9/16 rather. So we're going to measure out 9/16 this way and 9/16 that way. That looks right. Now connect the tip of this dart, starting at your bust line at back, the back bust line, through those points. And here as well. There's our back dart opening. Let's measure up from our waistline to find where our neck starts and back. We're going to measure up 15 3/4. Put one here. Okay, double check that measurement. Good. And then let's measure out from center back across our top neckline, 3 3/8. 1, 2, 3, and 3/8. Let's square those two lines with a light marking because this will become curved eventually, but for now, as a guide. All right. Let's measure down from our bottom neck at center back, 3 15/16. 1, 2, 3, and 15/16 will be right there. Let's check it again. 1, 2, 3. All right. There's my mark. Now we want to square this line across to our center line. Now measure out from center back along that line, 7.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. Let's check that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Mark that. And this will become point J. All right. We're going to start establishing our armhole and shoulder line. So what we're going to do is measure out from D towards center back, 2 inches. Mark it. We'll call this point O. From point O, measure up 2 5/8. So square line up. 2 5/8 of an inch right there. 1, 2. And this will be point P. Okay. From the top, we're going to measure down. So let's measure down 1 inch and then 15/16. Just right here. So 1 inch, 15/16. And we'll mark that. So square out towards center back, 13/16. Recording. This is point L. think so. Okay. Now point L is going to connect right where our neckline connects to the top of waist. There we go. There's our back shoulder. Now let's create our armhole. I'm going to measure out, square out a 1/2 inch again. And then connect. Should be able to connect P. Sometimes I don't hit them perfectly, but if I'm close, that looks good. There we go. We have our back armhole. Now let's establish our back shoulder dart. 2 7/16 from where our shoulder and neck. We'll call this point K. So from point K, let's measure down 2 7/16. There's 2 7/16. All right. Now that mark will connect to the top of our dart, our waist dart. Like so. From our shoulder line, we're going to measure up 1 1/4 inches. So here's 1 1/4 inch, mark it. Make that a little thinner. From point L, we're going to now measure up 2 7/16. 1, 2, and 7/16. Connect that point to the tip of the dart. Find the center. Take whatever measurement it is. I have a 1/2 and 1/16. 1/2 of a 1/2 is 1/4 and a 32nd. And connect that as well. And there's my shoulder dart. Alright, we're almost done. Now we need to establish our true necklines and the shaping of our shoulders and dart intakes at the shoulder and at the waist. Okay? What I'll do here at our shoulders to create our intakes, starting at the dart leg, our stitching line of the dart closest to our back neckline, we're going to measure up 1/8 of an inch. Our center line of that dart, we're going to measure up from the shoulder 1/4 of an inch. And then the last dart leg, 3/16 of an inch. See, 1, 2. Like So we'll now do the same on our front shoulder dart. Starting at the dart leg closest to our armhole, we'll measure up 1/2 inch. The center fold line, 3/4 of an inch. And the dart leg closest to our neckline, 1/4 of an inch. Starting at the intersection of our front armhole and shoulder, you should be able to connect through to the first 2 points of a line. Now from our center line of our dart, connect to that 3rd point. And then from this dart leg to B, connect with a straight line. And there's our shoulder of our bodice. Front. Using your curve ruler on the back shoulder, connect to those points. It should be at 0 until about 1 inch to 3/4, and then you'd start curving up. And flip your ruler, do the same. And that curve should not be too long. There we go. Notice how it blends in. It doesn't come from all the way to this point. It's pretty flat, curves up, and then blends back in, and it's flat again. Okay, let's establish our curve, neck curve. And front neck curve, remember to square out 1/2 inch here. And I just found whatever curve worked best for me there. Okay, let's finish our waistline. Again, like we did up here, we're going to measure out certain measurements on our dart legs to create the correct curvature for our waist and dart openings. So, starting at the first dart leg on our back, one closest in our back, we're going to measure down 1/16 of an inch. Mark it. At center, we're going to measure down 1/8. Mark. And then 1/16 again. At side seam, we're going to measure down 1/4. And of course, the other side seam, because they end up sewing to each other, 1/4. Our front dart, that dart leg closest to side seam on the front, is 1/8. Our center fold line of our dart is 1/4. And the last one, 1/8. We'll now draw in the curves. Note that around here, our curve is going to end up at 0. Okay? And here, 0. It's also 0 here and 0 here. So using my curve ruler, I'll find a good curve. Right, connect those points. So I start here, connected through my first dart leg and center fold line of my dart. Now I'm going to find a curve where I can connect center fold line, dart leg, come back to 0 right around this area, and then hit my side seam marking. And there we go. let's do the same thing here. So, side seam, 0 somewhere in this point. First dart leg, fold line of dart, all in one line. Flip it, same thing. But here we're going up to 0. Okay? So right about there. Maybe a little bit more right there. And there it is. Now, let's draw in. Let's draw in our notches. Okay, directional notches. I'm going to use my curve ruler, putting 0 right at my side seam. I'm going to come up 2 inches, sorry, 2.5 inches, mark. And now square a nice line. And then a 1/2 inch above that notch, let's do another one. There's my directional back armhole notches. Same thing on the front, except we'll just do one. Put 0 right at side seam. And then count up 2.5 inches right here. Mark it. We also need our ease notches. Okay. Those notches will be 3 inches down from our shoulder along armhole. So 1, 2, 3, mark. 1, 2, 3, mark. And square. There we go. We've now drafted the front and back bodice sloper.